American Mafia originated when the Sicilian Mafia in Italy was being attacked by Mussolini. The Sicilian Mafia also came to America due to the Prohibition era that was taking place in the United States. Another main reason was that bootlegging was also happening. One of the most famous Mafia bosses was Al Capone. Capone was born in 1899 in Brooklyn to a poor immigrant family from Italy. Capone grew up in a squalid little tenement. While in his childhood, Capone was forced to go to a brutal Catholic school where they believed in violence. At the age of 14, he was expelled for hitting a female teacher, and he never went back. After dropping out of school, Capone met the gangster Johnny Torrio, who would prove to have great influence over him. Torrio taught Capone how to turn a crude culture into a corporate empire. Capone joined Johnny Torrio's James Street Boys gang, rising eventually to the 5 Points gang. One of Capone's nicknames throughout his life was Scarface, which he hated. He earned the nickname after insulting a young lady, and her brother slashed him in the face with his knife. Capone and Torrio remained partners up until 1925, when Torrio retired and Capone became the ruler of crime in Chicago. Capone was in charge of gambling, prostitution, and bootlegging, and he expanded his territories by gunning down rivals and rival gangs. Though Capone was rising in the ranks in the Mafia, he did take a brief break when he married middle-class Irish girl May Coughlin and settled down as a bookkeeper, but would soon return to work for his old boss Johnny Torrio in Chicago. Though he was a major player in the Mafia, he always made sure that he was well-dressed and set out to be viewed as a respectable businessman. Some of Capone's crimes include running brothels, gambling clubs, and racetracks, kidnapping opponents' election workers, and threatening voters with violence, and being involved with bootleg whiskey. He also orchestrated the deaths of many other gang members. One of the reasons Capone is so famous was his St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Capone was looking to deal with the rival gangster Bugs Moran and his Northsiders gang. They had been a threat to him for years. Moran once even tried to kill Capone's colleague and friend. Capone was responsible for many brutal acts of violence, mainly against other gangsters. The most famous of these acts was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929, in which he ordered the assassination of 7 rivals. Capone was never indicted for his racketeering, but was finally brought to justice for income tax evasion in 1931. After serving 6.5 years, Capone was released. He died in 1947 in Miami. Capone discovered that Moran and his gang were going to be lured by a bootlegger into a garage to buy whiskey. McGurn's men would be waiting for them, waiting in stolen police uniforms, the idea being that they would stage a fake raid. When McGurn's men thought they saw Moran, they got into their police uniforms and drove over to the garage in a stolen police car. The bootleggers, caught in the act, lined up against the wall. McGurn's men took the bootleggers' guns and opened fire with 2 machine guns. All the men except one were killed outright in cold blood. The plan was seemingly flawless, except for one major detail. Bugs Moran was not among the dead. Moran had seen the police car and took off. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre became a national media event, immortalizing Capone as the most ruthless, feared, smartest, and elegant mob bosses. Capone's activities attracted the attention of President Herbert Hoover, who set out to put him behind bars. Soon after, it was found out that Capone had a tax liability of $32,000. The jury found him guilty of several counts of tax evasion, and he was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Capone was originally moved to a prison in Atlanta, and then to the infamous Alcatraz in San Francisco. Shortly after being released from prison, he died of cardiac arrest at age 48.